The magic in this community. So I wanted to end tonight by letting you hear from one of our seniors who delivered a beautiful talk in this room on Sunday afternoon. I've gotten to the point where I don't really micromanage what they're going to say. I suggest to them, these are the topics I'd love for you to talk about. And I talked to Asher about this, and he exceeded my expectations, and I think you'll feel the same way. So please welcome Asher Curnutte.
Good evening. My name is Asher Curnutte, and I'm a senior here at MBA. I'm here today to recognize the immense and far-reaching influence that teachers have on all of our lives, as each and every one of us is and will forever be a student. Teaching, unlike any other profession, presents an opportunity to change the world every single day, just by showing up to class. Teachers do not just instruct their students in the disciplines of mathematics or English or history, but they are also professors of life. And in every action they take, the eyes of the students are upon them, eager to learn. And in that simple fact lies the greatest beauty in all of education. Albert Einstein said, "It is the supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge." Before attending MBA, I went to Julia Green Elementary School and J.T. Moore Middle, and though I had many good teachers whose kind words and supportive gestures still linger in my mind, the most influential teacher I had in those 7 years of school was my 4th grade science teacher, Mrs. King. Now, I remember Mrs. King as the kindest and most caring lady I had ever met, with just the right amount of crazy and wild in her silvery gray hair. Mrs. King's classroom was just like her, colorful, unique, enchanting, and at times chaotic. But the best thing about Mrs. King was the enthusiasm with which she taught, and not just taught, but lived. In every action, whether it was calling us in from recess or politely ordering us to quiet down in lunch line, it was always there. And lastly, she was a science geek, which I loved, for I'd always loved science. I was the kid that picked up rocks on hikes, gazed at the stars through a telescope, and always wanted to know more. Although that had always been a part of who I was, she instilled in me a deeper passion for discovery and a joy with which to go about it, and for that I am forever grateful. I've had many teachers since then, and I know I will have many more in my life, but I would like to share a little bit about some of the teachers here at MBA that have been the most influential to me. On the first day of classes, on a warm summer day back in August, at the beginning of my freshman year, I found my way up the stairs to my Spanish class. And though I had taken Spanish before, all I could remember were a few colors and the greeting, hola. But on that first day, my Spanish teacher, Senor Pauliki, lined us up outside the class and made us enter one at a time. I positioned myself in the middle so I could observe the first victims. He greeted us, buenos dias, good morning. ¿Cómo te llamas? What is your name? The first unlucky man at the door stood dumbfounded. How could he expect us to answer him? We had not even begun class yet. We did not speak this language. After a few seconds of awkward silence, the student ventured a mumbled sound. Then Senor Pauliki led him along, giving him a word at a time and making him repeat it until he had given a proper response. When my turn came, I, having witnessed the struggles of those before me, managed to pass the test, although I'm sure it was by the bare minimum. I knew then and there that I would enjoy that class, and I did. But what I did not know was that I would be set on a path, driven by a passion in Spanish awakened that day, that would send me to California to speak only Spanish for 3 weeks at an immersion camp, and then 4,000 miles away across the Atlantic to live with a host family in southern Spain. I did not know that I would start tutoring English to Hispanic immigrants Monday nights at Paragon Mills Elementary School. And I didn't know that I would graduate from reading basic conversations written for a chapter in a textbook to epic Spanish poems from the 13th century and letters written by Fernando Cortez to the King of Spain. See, that is the beauty of a teacher, the ability to awaken in students a passion that even they may not have known was there. Pat Conroy, the renowned American author, expressed a similar gratitude when he wrote, "I have read like a man on fire my whole life because the genius of my English teachers touched me with the dazzling beauty of language. Because of them, I rode with Don Quixote and danced with Anna Karenina at a ball in St. Petersburg, and lassoed a steer in Lonesome Dove, had nightmares about slavery and beloved, and walked the streets of Dublin and Ulysses, and made up 100 stories in the Arabian Nights and saw my mother killed by a baseball in a prayer for Owen Meany. I've been in 10,000 cities and I have introduced myself to 100,000 strangers in my exuberant reading career, all because I listened to my fabulous English teachers and soaked up every single thing those magnificent men and women had to give. I cherish and praise them and thank them for finding me when I was a boy and presenting me with the precious gift of the English language." I think that his words express the most powerful gratitude a student can have for a teacher. The gratitude to say that this teacher truly changed my life. I too have had many great English teachers during my time here. But it is my junior English literature class with Mr. Kelly that stands out. It is not that the class was so special because of what we read, since we read the classics, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, Pride and Prejudice, and the Romantic Poets, but it was the manner in which Mr. Kelly taught. It is so easy for teachers to stand in front of a class and spray information at the students like a broken sprinkler. After all, that teacher is the expert. But there's a true art in teaching when one can convey the necessary information, but have the student reach his or her own conclusions alone. I recall, while reading Joyce's A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, we were discussing the topics of art and beauty. And instead of telling us, boys, here's what Joyce meant when he said this, and then asking us to regurgitate that information back on a test, he paused and went around the room and asked each of us, what do you think art is? What defines it? And what is beauty? Questions man has tried to answer for thousands of years, he asked us as if it were a question as mundane as how is the weather today? It was in instances such as that one where I was challenged to think deeper and on my own, not restricted by any teacher's syllabus or author's agenda, that made the class so spectacular. Now, this is not to say the class was not difficult, because I can still to this day recite the prologue of the Canterbury Tales and tell you that Milton wrote Paradise Lost to, quote, justify the ways of God to man. Nevertheless, I am thankful for every moment of that class and relish all that I learned from it. I would like to conclude with an excerpt from a poem written by the modern poet and humorist Taylor Mali, who is himself a teacher. It is entitled, What Teachers Make. In this excerpt, he is responding to the pompous comment of someone at a dinner party who asked how much teachers make. He says, you want to know what I make? I make kids work harder than they ever thought they could. I can make a C+ feel like a Congressional Medal of Honor and an A- feel like a slap in the face. How dare you waste my time with anything less than your very best? I make kids sit through 40 minutes of study hall in absolute silence. No, you may not work in groups. No, you may not ask a question. Why won't I let you go to the bathroom? Because you're bored, and you don't really have to go to the bathroom, do you? I make parents tremble in fear when I call home, hi, this is Mr. Mali. I hope I haven't called at a bad time. I just wanted to talk to you about something your son said today. To the biggest bully in the grade, he said, leave that kid alone. I still cry sometimes, don't you? It's no big deal. And that was the noblest act of courage that I've ever seen. I make parents see their children for who they are and what they can be. You want to know what I make? I make kids wonder. I make them question. I make them criticize. I make them apologize and mean it. I make them write. I make them read, read, read. I make them spell definitely beautiful, definitely beautiful, definitely beautiful over and over and over again until they will never misspell either of those words again. I make them show all their work in math and hide it on their final drafts in English. I make them understand that if you've got this, then you follow this. Here, let me break it down for you so you know what I say is true. Teachers make a difference. Now what about you? Thank you.